Okay, hello, welcome to my talk. My name is Oliver Geisser, I'm from Germany. I'm working as a solutions architect at a company named Water. And as part of this job, I'm thinking about our IT strategy and IT portfolio. And in this context, I have researched the topic of monitoring as a service providers. This talk is split into two parts. In the first part, I will give you a short, high-level overview of modern monitoring setup. In the second part, I will give you the actual collection of monitoring as a service providers, which are typical examples of the current market. And I will also roughly categorize these providers into different groups. Okay, first, modern monitoring. Some background in history. The traditional approach of monitoring is to separate monitoring and analytics. Monitoring traditionally works with a check and alert strategy. For example, every 5 minutes, do a check to see if there's enough space left on the hard disk. Result of this check is okay or not okay. And if it's not okay, send an alert. The actual numbers, for example, the bytes used or which are free on the hard disk, it gets lost in this process. And only the event, so the notification event, gets processed. In contrast to this, typical analytics works by collecting data and doing some statistic on it. For example, collect the Apache log files, process the log files to count the number of requests or unique users or whatever. Modern monitoring setup consists of a pipeline of processing steps and combines some parts of analytics with the traditional monitoring. So the steps from left to right. First, you collect the monitoring data, of course, that's the key point. And what kind of data? Metrics and or log files. Metrics are a timestamp and some number, and log events are timestamp plus some text. Okay, next you store the data centralized storage of this data, and you have specialized storage mechanism for the data, for example, for time series or for full text storage mechanism. Next step is to analyze the data, doing some visualization or doing some statistics. And then the biggest difference is that the actual alarms to get notifications are based on these collected and statistics which you have centralized. So the decision to alert is deferred from the point of data collection later on in the processing step. So, to go into some more details of the various steps. First, the collect steps, and this is the most important step, because in this step is decided what data to collect. And what data to collect is dependent of the layer you are targeting, you're monitoring it, and this is dependent on the goal of your monitoring. Going from bottom up the layers, let's start with server monitoring. This is what you usually call monitoring. So you are monitoring the infrastructure, the CPU load, the used RAM, storage capacity, network I/O, and so on. And typically this works by using agents which needs to be installed in the machines. So they are provided by the monitoring as a service providers. They have the backend on their side, but they offer you to install some agents. And these agents collect these metrics on an operating system level. Next layer is here the actual application. And there are two kinds of monitoring types. The application performance monitoring. This is the most advanced technology. Typically, this uses technology which are coming from or which are familiar with inside of debuggers or profilers. So they are going on the level of the runtime container, for example, the Java VM, but also .NET runtime. And it gives you insights on the level of your application code. So which method is slow or which method is called most, and stuff like this. And it also combines this, at least some of the providers offers these features to combine these insights across different service hops. So if you have an end-tier architecture, then this can also be correlated. And in addition to your actual code, there's also specialized insights into middleware, for example, Tomcat runtime, or Tomcat container, or Eka runtime. And in most cases, the providers also offer you features to get a better insight into your database, for example, slow queries and so on. Also at the application level, there is this management of log files. So like I've explained before, you need to centralize the log files. This works typically by watching log files on the file system, but also on the protocol or API level, for example, Unix syslog or Windows event logs. Or it integrates with certain log libraries, like, for example, log4j adapter, which sends it to a provider provided endpoint. It's not only collecting the text, but also parsing the text. So typically, you want to split the raw string into named fields to later better process and do better searches on this log events. Then going to the service, at the service layer, you want to know, is your service available to the end user? So this is a typical goal of the uptime monitoring with a variation called web performance monitoring. So this works by using external probing agents. So the provider has their own network of probing agents. Most of them offer HTTP protocol support, but some of them also other kind of protocols like SMTP, TCP, and so on. And the difference here is in the details. So do you just check the response, or do you check part of the payload? For example, in the HTTP, do you only check a 200 OK response, or do you look at the payload and tries to detect some certain string inside of the text data? And also on the detail, like, for example, is there support for HTTP redirects or for HTTP authentication, and HTTPS support with certificate checking and so on. Like I've explained before, in contrast to the server monitoring agents, which are typically installed on your machines, the external agents are managed and hosted by the provider itself, and they have different locations around the world to ping your machines. And so you should check if there's a location near your typically user base. So if you're only checking from the US and you have European customers, then the results are not realistic. And this is one of the features you should check with a provider. One step more advanced is real user monitoring. Then instead of just sending a ping and checking if there's a result code, you go one step further and simulate, or actually the provider is running a complete browser, including not only loading the main page, but also the additional resources like CSS, images, JavaScript, and also rendering and executing this. So this gives this real user experience, because just getting the first byte is not what a real user is experiencing. For the real user, there's a point where he can see the complete website. And then on the highest level, we have this business KPI metrics. And of course, no none of the providers can know what KPIs you and your business need. So there's no out-of-the-box solution. But here is the question, how is your application supported or your development is supported to provide these metrics? So you need to decide beforehand what are your KPIs. This is your business, you're specific to your business. And then you need to find this inside of your applications. And then the question is, how is this supported? Are there any libraries? Are there any tools? Is the library in the programming language you need? Is it integrated with some open source libraries, like, for example, StudsD or Coda Hail Matrix, Matt Rabel has mentioned yesterday, and stuff like this. The next steps are much more simpler. The store, you have to think about what volume is stored, how much does it cost, how long is it retained, how is it ingested into the provider, and so on. But this is typically you just see from the outside. So it's just a question of capacity and price. The next step, the analyze step, there you have different parts. For example, the visualize is the most obvious part. You have nice looking graphs. You need to decide if these are, from a look and feel perspective, you like them. And much more important is the performance. Typically you have HTML5 user interfaces nowadays, and which are working with a push. So how quick is a refresh. And going into the functional area, there is much more important how you can work with these graphs. So can you correlate these, or can you annotate this, for example, to mark a certain point in time where you have deployed a new version. So you can correlate this information that there's a higher CPU or higher load or slower website in combination to your new version. For log events, of course, you need to search, and typically the research results, there's also the possibility to graph the results. For example, you're searching for exceptions, and you can then graph the number of exceptions in a given time period. Very important topic is to look in the provider's features regarding aggregate functions. So do they support the typical aggregate functions like minimum, average, and so on is supported by every provider, but percentiles or histograms is something you should check if you need this, and in most of the cases you need this. And then there's also the problem of the alarms. Typically, there's a threshold. If you reach this threshold, there's an alarm triggered, and this means you can see flapping effects if you are just touching these thresholds. And the last point is alert. This is mostly an organizational point. You can see different channels, who's on call schedule, escalation if it's not acknowledged, and you need to see the alarms later on. Okay, then I have researched this market, and it's highly dynamic with a huge number of providers, and the providers have a large overlay, and these slides I've presented you before can give you an orientation to decide which parts do you need, which should be your focus, and you should try them out by your own. These are only examples of the market. Every day or week or month, new providers appears on the market, and they have different positionings in the market. For example, server monitoring is done by these providers. They position themselves in the server monitoring market. Most of them has also some parts to support custom metrics, but they don't have features like which you need for application performance monitoring. Another part is this web and uptime monitoring. You see, these are mostly the same providers. You have, in addition, some specialists, like, for example, Pingdom. It's very popular, but it's only focusing on the uptime monitoring, and the other ones also has the other part of the functionality. And then you get to the application performance management, and then you see there are much fewer providers in the market because, like I've explained before, this is the most advanced topic, so you need a very advanced technology, and not so many companies currently offer this or has developed these features. And the last part is this log management and log file analytics. They are separate part because they focus typically. So some of them also offer on-premise versions, like, for example, Splunk, but the other ones are pure cloud providers. And then they have some specialists, for example, Aeroplane and Libato. They are custom matrix only, so they do not offer solutions regarding the collect step, and only focus on the visualizing and analytics part. And another specialist is PagerDuty, which does only alert management and nothing else, but this in a very advanced fashion. Okay, conclusion is, market is ready, pick and try yourself. Most, if not all, offer trials or starter kits for a very low price, so you should check them out with your own test drive. Okay, thank you. My Twitter handle, you can find the link and give me feedback.